We've talked about things that I guess you could say is easy level. So I want to talk about things that are a little bit more difficult for people to understand, adapt to, and, it's kind of controversial right now. Everybody wants to have their own AI assistant, right? Everybody's like already shoving it into their customer service. We came up with something that is kind of clever. It's called a human assistant, but if the AI in human is uppercase, because it is something that is more human-based. Humans do train the AI system. And I know it sounds like we're just trying to spin it a different way using marketing terms, but if you can give me a little bit of insight on what makes them different, better, and a really good fit for lead conversion, I'd like to hear it.
Our stance on this is that we've been working on this for the last year and a half, really. Everybody's just kind of trying to go and get into it. We've been building and training it for the last year and a half, but really it's based on our experience and our success within specific industries, right? Like home services, solar, other industries that we work in. So, for me, I think what's really evidenced by this is the fact that we're able to go and create these prompts and the programming on, OpenAI and ChatGPT, the GPT-4 Turbo in specific, towards use cases that are specific to these industries. So when you talk about like people are trying to launch it, they have these things. They have these things in their head where they're going, okay, I'm here to convert, right? And I wanted to go and try to get an appointment. That's elementary. I think what the thing that we to make it very simple, we took it from, yep, we're going to convert, to what makes it an enjoyable experience. Okay. I think to me, that's infinitely harder to achieve, right? When you say, well, how can you convert? That's pretty easy. I mean, you just go and have it open and you go and try to train it. You provide it with all this documentation as to how you want to respond. That's not difficult. What's infinitely difficult, which I think a lot of platforms fail to do, is that they're not really looking at it from the way that we've always looked at it from the beginning. Again, we've used all the platforms out there that many people are using, that we used to use, and now we compete with them, right? We know those platforms. We know that this is the way that they've been doing it, but they're still creating products like this, their AI, that is still templated, still like kind of focused on everybody's going to get the exact same experience. We have taken the other direction. We went the other way and we said, no one person will ever have the same interaction, because we consider things like intent, right? We score the intents, we score the leads, we filter through those, we work with enhanced data. And then through that, we then start building out the prompts or the ways of which the responses will be curated for the customer. And it's always going to be specific to that person. So I think that this is the main difference. It's less of an AI assistant, and I want to think about it this way, is like when you choose these other companies and you have their AI, they're your vendor. So they're basically providing you with the technology. Whereas with us, we feel like this is more of like a partnership. We're your partner. We're not your vendor, right? So it's evolving that particular relationship. So it's constantly being calibrated, whereas everybody's kind of buying an out of the box thing and they're thinking, oh yeah, cool. But I think this is the lazy way of doing it. It does take more time to do it the way that we're doing it, but it's also the long-term success that we're looking at, where we're saying, look, it will fail here, and that's where we learn at the biggest learning curves, right? We go up there, and then it just continues to go and scale, and that slope may not be as steep, but it will just continue going this way, as opposed to it goes really, really good, and then it just plateaus because everybody's using the exact same thing. So I think that the buy-in as well is going to be important. We do a lot of training with our clients where we go and say, you've got to treat this like it was, in fact, a team member, right? You're training your team members. You're going to do the exact same thing here. You're going to allocate those time, those resources. The only difference, I think, is it's a little bit more convenient because with staff, you have to hire them. You have to wait for them to come to the office. You have to explain things in a specific way. Whereas with, OpenAI's ChatGPT, it's always there to listen to you, and it'll never bypass your particular rules, granted that you prompted correctly, right? And it's going to continue to learn. It's going to continue to evolve. So I really think that it's an exciting time. It will create this revolution from within contact centers, marketing teams, sales teams. But I do think that just like in the beginning of these things, just like when taxis were being replaced by Uber, not everyone in the beginning is going to be comfortable with it. But now that it's here, it's going to stay. You know what I mean? So the companies that evolve quicker and kind of adopt to it much quicker are the ones that are going to see the ability to dominate, their competition. And then eventually everybody else will just use it. But by that point, you're just another user at that point.
It's really easy to kind of lean back and say, like, listen, this is the really cool, most modern technology. And I think that everybody is saying that that's using AI. But the $1 million question is, can it take a lead to a sale? And if so, would you want to go through your project where you're spending thousands and thousands of dollars dealing with just an AI? Or would that make you nervous? Do you think that it's a matter of if they can detect if it's AI or not? Like, what is the secret sauce?
I think that there's nothing wrong with revealing to your customers that this is something that's OpenAI or it's AI generated, right? Again, people don't really care, in my opinion, if the experience is better. Like if the experience is better, faster, easier, you're going to like that automation. And I think it's looking at it from the lens of someone who looks at it from audiences. There's a specific audience within your lead sources that don't want to talk to a human, or they don't want to be bombarded with phone calls.
Thanks for setting an appointment with Channel Automation. Let's review all the details now.
Here's my challenge, right? To any company that goes and says, just phone calls. We've been doing phone calls. We rely on phone calls. We will set, confirm, and reschedule things with a phone call and only with a phone call. We'll use text, but we have to speak to people. The challenge that I throw out at everybody out there who's thinking this way is this. We're not trying to change what works on those people that actually answer the calls, right? But if you look at your conversion from all your lead sources, and you go, how many calls do you have to make that don't amount to anything? Or how many times do you have to make these phone calls that lead to nothing, or did lead to people just saying, I'm not interested? Okay. And the challenge is, how are you going to go and convert on those individuals or those particular parts of your audiences or lookalike audiences or your personas with more phone calls? So that's the point here. And those phone calls are generated by humans, right? By the contact center agents. And then on top of that, the next level there of my challenge to them, it would be how many of those agents actually perform uniformly across those people that want the phone call versus the ones that fail. Have you calculated for those? Because you might find that there's just enough of those people plus the ones that don't want the phone call that allow you to go and get that lift you're looking for. But the problem is you're so bent on a philosophy as opposed to understanding that what we're trying to do is give you a different strategy.
I think a lot of people get too much on the black and white setup. And I love what you said about it saying like, no, this is how you're going to contact the leads that aren't responding well to your phone calls. Because I think a lot of people think, okay, well, if I'm implementing text messages, SMS messages, or if I'm going to be putting in AI, what about the people who already like talking on the phone? Like, I'm going to be pigeonholing them out. But it's really in addition to, is that what you're saying? It's like more like in addition to, now that you have the people who like talking on the phone and you already are reaching them just fine, now the people that you weren't getting that don't want to talk on the phone, now they have an option to have communication in the way that they want to be communicated to.
Yeah, exactly. People keep asking, how do I convert better? Well, they're asking the wrong question because it's incomplete. How do I convert better on these particular audiences that I'm not converting on with my current strategy or approach? That's really the complete sentence or question that you should be thinking about. So in this case, if I've succeeded in converting particular leads into sales or appointments or whatnot on the phone calls, then I don't want to mess with that. I want to enhance that. But the overwhelming blue ocean of leads or prospects that you do not convert in using your strategy now are human, right, agents with ChatGPT that's powered by real intelligence with OpenAI's ChatGPT. You can't beat that because one, it's uniform, it's consistent, and it's going to respond with the personalization that no contact center agent, or maybe the bottom 30 to 50% of your contact center agents, they're never going to respond that way. Here's a very specific example. When a contact center agent or call center agent, telemarketer is asked a question, why can't you give me a price over the phone? I just want a price over the phone. A few things to consider. Here's why they keep on failing, right? There's a lot of failures as opposed to successes with those types of objection rebuttal interactions. One, they're really only trained to respond one or two ways based on a script. The script says, if a customer asks, can you give me a price over the phone? You can't give them a price over the phone. I don't train you to give a price over the phone. You have to give them this rebuttal to their objection and try to move it towards setting an appointment. Now, you just look at that from within your contact center and you go, oh, I really don't succeed.
I think people forget to ask, does that work for you? Because I think they think that they're talking to idiots. Like if somebody were to rebuttal, like, does that work for you? Would you be like, oh, okay, makes sense?
Well, it could work sometimes. I mean, I'm not saying it's 0%, right? But there's being in this industry, there's a very, very, strong probability that, especially if you're getting the data from your bottom 30 to 50% of your contacts or agents, the ones that are not your top agents, they're most likely not going to succeed with responding or trying to convert or persuade that person. Okay, so how does the AI, with us, work differently? Well, one, again, assuming that this isn't like, we do have the voice piece, but let's pretend that it's in the voice and the text and the email all across the channels, right? The AI is not going to just respond with this rebuttal to that objection. It's going to think about those intents. It's going to think like, what time of day is it? How many times did we call this customer? What lead source are they from? What, do we have their credit score? Because we have enhanced data, right? What region are they from? If we have demographic information from Facebook leads, like what kind of gender, language, right? All of these, it's going to consider all of those and then formulate a response that is bespoke to that person, that allows that person to understand, oh, this is the response I'm looking for. So even though it is not 100%, I just want you to think about this easy math, okay? An agent treats 100 people exactly the same way. They just fire off a response. They don't even think. Kind of makes you think now like, they're not even thinking. I'm just giving them a response to go and tell someone. They're not thinking, right? But I'm paying them so much more. Whereas with AI, it's thinking about that consumer, that prospect. It's thinking about all the elements, right? Lightning speed, and then creating a response, right? That is bespoke to that person. So that means that if I had 100 people and I only had 2 rebuttals to my objection, I might get a 2% chance because there might be 2 people out of the 100 that fit that mold. Okay. Whereas with ChatGPT, there's 100 different responses specific to those individuals. What do you think the probability is of success? It is much higher, right? So I think that's really where people are going to to go and many companies will just stick to their guns. That's what it is. It's like people who, before the advent again of Uber and Lyft, they're just like, nah, I'm never going to get it. Like, I'm going to either use my own car, take the bus, or use a taxi. And then eventually you just phase those things out. And then you're like, I don't have much choice but to use the same technology. So I think that's really where the exciting piece would be, at least for our clients and the clients who continue to clamor to us, because they understand, oh man, I'm paying agents not to think, they're failing most of the time. And there must be a better way to provide a more enjoyable experience to a consumer. And what people don't realize, Case, is that you can actually start taking the responses from ChatGPT because that this is front and center. It's providing you with all these data points. You don't have to get rid of your agents. You can have it as another top agent, and then now you kind of help the other agents with this, right? Because it's part of your team. But that's a thing, isn't it? You have to take a strategy that this isn't replacing all my agents. This isn't something that's going to replace my job. It's part of my team. And I got to treat it like it's a part of my team, like it's a top setter, like it's a top contact center rep, top salesperson, top inside salesperson. And if you have this particular mindset, I think, again, you'll find that it's a new day. It's innovative. It's something that's enjoyable, not only for you, but for other people and especially your customers.
One of the things that you did mention with like a top setter, a top performer, one thing that they're all really, really good at and have in common is on the CRM or whatever, communication platform that they're using, they write really detailed notes and they say, this is how the person wants to be talked to. This is what I already know about this person. Is that something that the AI can bridge? So that way, if somebody else were to take over the conversation later, they're like, oh, okay, I have all the details of this person just besides what is on their form fill.
Yeah, because from voice to text to email to chat to social, we collect all the information. Even on the voice, we transcribe it and then we collect this data. We can utilize this to train further down the trough of your conversations, engagements, lead sources, and your agents. So yes, we, unlike a top contact center rep who might keep this to themselves, or maybe unless you're tracking them, right? It's very tough to go and say, well, how do I replicate it? Now, some people will, I'm going to have my top contact center rep train the other people or use that. That doesn't necessarily work now because, again, you're still just getting one response, and you might think, oh, that response works a lot. But it only works for that person, the way that they deliver it, and maybe because they have some nuances on the interaction. You're still kind of creating these cookie cutter responses, which is, again, that's a main difference. If you're still listening right now or you're watching this, I want you to understand that with contact center and with these singular form responses, it's responses that you think works X amount of times, but really, unless you've quantified that data, you probably don't know the exact percentage of your success there. So really, you've just got your scripts that you say, this is how we want you to respond. But that's not going to work as much as if you had artificial intelligence, machine learning, okay, putting together responses based on those elements, but it's specific to that user, to that prospect, because it will consider things, like I said, time of day, number of times you contacted them, credit score, budgets, whatever they're using as words, lead source type, region, demographic info. Humans just don't think in those terms.
And one of the things that you haven't mentioned yet that is like a big plus for me is I can't tell you how many times that I'm talking to a contact center rep, and we work in technology, so I'm very, very patient with people. But when they're like, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm pulling up your information. The system's real slow. You know how it is. Or they're like, yeah, I'm just reading through the notes right now. I'm trying to see like where you are in the project. I'm checking the last notes from the route. Oh, okay, you're over here. That can be a 5 to 10 minute conversation in itself where this person is just trying to investigate who you are, where you came from, where the AI, they're not having to like sit and read. It's just instantaneous knowledge in its quote unquote brain that it just knows because it is, you get the contact and it looks at your phone number and it knows everything about you. or, you know, it looks at your form and just knows everything about you. It was really interesting.
Yeah, I like what you said there, like knows you, because it's thinking through those intents and data points. Whereas with, you know, intentions can get in the way of conversion. You know, let me explain. A contact center rep is held accountable to number of calls and conversions, right? So like you have to make this many calls. You have to speak to this many people and have this much, and no one can go to me and say, well, you don't know what you're talking about. I lived and breathed that, right, for a decade. So I've failed and I've succeeded in it. So that's what I know, that I used to go and think about it and say, oh yeah, you have to formulate those things, and you kind of get, you know, just group think, because everybody kind of thinks the same way. So with what you're saying is, with AI now and machine learning, it's going to go and really think through the response before giving it. And in some cases, it doesn't even think about the conversion, right? Especially if you prompt it, because it plays both short and long games. So an agent right now, if you're speaking to me or texting me or chatting with me, my thing is like, I need to go and convert you. Okay. I'm not thinking like, oh man, if I push too hard or if I say the wrong thing, I would lose you.
AI doesn't have anxiety. It's just unapologetically itself.
Exactly. And it actually will provide, if you train it, it will have a strategy of like, this person is not thinking about the offer right now. Very busy using specific words. Let me go and think through that and send this person to the best path for conversion down the road. So, you know, in most cases, if a customer is like, hey, I need a price, and the agent like they don't have any training, they don't have any means to provide a price. They're basically going like, well, it's either you set up
Let
an
me go
appointment
transfer you to my manager to make sure that that's okay. Hold on, please.
Right. Yeah. And again, you text messages and emails is even more difficult than chat, right? Because you're not trained. Whereas with machine learning, it's going to figure those things out. Like, you want to get a price. Have you considered these? Have you checked these things out? Right. And it's sending you content, links and stuff, and it's following up and you. It's like, what did you find? Right. Because one, it's not a call center rep is basically here's my time now, because once this thing is over, I can't follow up or I can't be served this. I have to move on to my next customer. With AI, it's everywhere. So this thing is not on the clock, right? It's thinking long game, short game and long game. And it's going, you're not ready right this very second. But if I send you this content and I follow up with you in 2 hours, and then you look at it and then I have a conversation with you in 2 hours, you know, because I'm not on the clock, you're most likely converting higher. You see, that could never happen within the call center environment because of the limitations of scheduling, right? The people have to be 9 to 5, 8 to 4, whatever the case may be, or they're part-timers, right? The internal processes within a contact center get in the way of conversion. You can't, you know, as soon as you hang up with this customer or stop the text message or email, you're done. You got to move on to the next one. So I don't even care anymore about this one if I can't convert it right now. I'm moving on to the next one. I'm just trying to find the one that's easy.
You're not even missing, you're missing the most simple point though, Vic. What about I can only have one conversation at one time because I'm one person? This person, this AI, it could be talking to 100 people at the same time because it doesn't have to breathe.
Exactly. I try to avoid like kind of, because some people might think I'm trying to replace look, if there's anybody who's going to get replaced, it's the bottom 30 to 50, 60, 70% of your agents that are not efficient anyway. And to be frank, I would love to live in a world where there's less suffering on the contact center and the call center people, because those telemarketing positions, they create a lot of suffering, right? People who don't like those jobs, they're just getting it for the heck of it. You know, they don't have any choice. It's a dead end job for the most part. You know, only the top 20% produce the 80%. Those are your top 20 percenters, right? The rest of them are like just passing through this position. You know, just look at your retention or your attrition rate. Like, people still don't look at those data points. You know, I had a customer once told me, like, I asked, like, what's your attrition? You go, at 30%, like 3 out of 10 people, will quit and I have to replace those. in HR, I think from what I recall, the way you calculate that is you go 30 times 12. So in the year, it's 360%. That's your attrition. So you've replaced every person in your contact center 3.5 times. Like all that time, money spent and all of that, sure, the business could save that. But I like to think about the people and think, that's a lot of suffering that those people had to go through.
One of the things that Vic and I used to do when we were working closer to the call center is we would say, would you rather work as a call center rep or work in janitorial? Or would you rather work as a call center rep or work as like an EMT? Because it's like you could pick like the worst jobs possible. And it's a controversial issue when you compare it to a call center rep. Like people don't think about how hard of a job that is.
It's not only the hard part, it's just become, I think it's just obsolete, these roles, because it's basically, it used to think like, hey, it's a thinking person's job, but management and call centers have started to become more and more stringent because of the rules, TCPA, FCC laws, all of these. And so they're basically saying, well, you can't say anything other than this. If you're going to go and hire somebody for $20 to $30 an hour all in to basically not think and say something off a script, then what are we doing here? And it's not even thinking, right? And I think the issue really here is not that AI is, this buzzword is really machine learning. It's been around for a while, right? It's just in certain industries, people are just afraid of it because they don't know how to start. They don't know where to begin. They don't understand it at all. And they're going to, like, people, are going to gravitate towards what they're used to. So the advice that I want to give to everybody out there is it's temporary, this unknown and this fear. You've got to overcome it by keeping head on and maybe having a change of heart with your change of perspective, right? And people will go and look at they have their own, perspective on things, but maybe looking at it from the eyes of, look, it's just another team member. I'm just bringing somebody, if you want to call it that, that's going to follow, going to support me, going to enhance what I'm doing. It's going to make mistakes, but people that I bring in make mistakes. And so if you grab that, the bull by the horns with that enthusiasm, I think a lot of companies, a lot of managers will find that it's here to stay, right? AI, it's here to be of help, but you've got to stop looking at it like it's just a non-entity. You almost want to just kind of think about it as like, I'm just bringing in a new team member.
Are you trying to say, no, I'm just kidding. I'm not even going to go into the stupid robot Skynet AI. It's too easy. It's too easy at this point. I'm not even going to go for it.
I take a fatalistic view on those things. If Skynet ever happens and it does take over, I just take a fatalistic view. It's going to happen. I'm happy to spend my time and the days remaining to enjoy myself and create a world in which, if we're going to go that direction, might as well be part of it and be happy during this time.
Well, you don't want to be harvested for blood or any of that, but yeah, I see what.
Matrix style. Well, yeah, if I was part of the system and I help build it and it gets to there, maybe I'll get more, gold tokens, and
there you go. Bitcoin. No, I'm just kidding.
Very, very, very. In China they do that where they score you socially. I could see how artificial intelligence, some real autonomous intelligence there would score people. So if I just do my part now, I think I'd score really high, and maybe I'd be up the ladder in that, society where, I'm just like the Matrix.
That's going to be it for us today. Whether you love or you hate what we talked about, we do want to hear from you. So comment or shoot us an email at hello@channelautomation.com. Obviously, you can go visit us at www.channelautomation.com and then meet with our team and chat us up, like say, hey, I heard that thing on the podcast. I didn't understand it, or can you elaborate on it? Or I like it too. Let's talk about it. We want to hear from you. And please consider subscribing to the podcast, subscribing to our YouTube, and get tips on marketing and call centers that are completely free. And as always, make sure to keep your lead conversion high.